The following is Julie's story, an English woman from the Lake District. It describes her journey from the dramatic events of how it all started, through her getting her Parkinson's diagnosis, to her regaining hope with B1 treatment, and finally to the present day, when she has more laughter back in her life. Parkinson's is no longer in control. She is. I breathed in deeply. The warm sun on my face felt so good as I sat by the pool reading my book. We looked forward every autumn to exchanging the cold, wet weather of northwest England for 3 months in the Californian sun. Deciding I ought not stay in the sun too long on my first day, I closed my book and stood up. I suddenly felt very wobbly, and before I could stop myself, I had crashed face first onto the hard paving round the pool. There was a lot of blood, but I generally felt much better the next day and went to the tennis courts with my husband. However, something strange happened when I got out of the car. I felt as if I was drunk. I wasn't in control of my movements, and I was dragging my right foot slightly. I wasn't too worried, though. I'd had quite a crash the day before, and a family friend who was a doctor reassured me that everything seemed okay. It wasn't until we arrived back in England and I was writing my Christmas cards that I began to really worry. My right hand wasn't working properly, and my handwriting had become very small. Then I noticed that I'd developed a tremor in my right hand. Sitting there, surrounded by Christmas cards, my thoughts went to Muhammad Ali, who had had Parkinson's. I also remembered my husband's best man, who was already in a care home with Parkinson's, and a neighbor who was struggling after 15 years with Parkinson's. But before I had time to dwell on what might lay ahead for me, the family were arriving for Christmas, so I put all thoughts of such things to one side and focused on being jolly. I certainly didn't want to spoil everyone's fun. When Christmas was over and the family had left, I had time to worry once more. Thoughts that I could put to one side in the Californian sun became very real fears in the chill air of England. One thought kept going round in my head. Could I have Parkinson's? Finally, I broached the subject with my husband, but he dismissed my concerns and suggested I was just overtired. My sister-in-law happened to be a Parkinson's nurse, so I decided to contact her and ask her to pop in so that she could reassure me like my husband had done. My sister-in-law came very quickly. It was the beginning of COVID scares and lockdown with its rules, and I remember she sat at one end of the sofa and I sat at the other. She asked me to write a paragraph. It was strange. The first few words were nearly normal, but the more I wrote, the smaller my handwriting became, and I couldn't make it any different. My sister-in-law watched me write, and then told me that I had Parkinson's. I remember clearly how she said that this was not a death sentence, but a serious challenge. Then she added that she would be there for me. I suddenly realized that I'd been keeping my worries to myself since October, and now, even though I had had my fears confirmed, it was out in the open, and strangely, I felt a sense of relief. When my sister-in-law had left, I spoke to my husband about my concerns for the first time. We had been together for 60 years, and he reassured me that we would face this together. It might be a different life plan to the one we had had, but we were as one and would not be beaten. It seemed a very short time before I was facing a neurologist, and he was confirming what I now feared. I still couldn't believe it. I had retired from a stressful full-time career and was enjoying my well-earned freedom. I was probably the fittest I had been for 30 years. I had lost some necessary weight. I went to the gym 5 or 6 days every week. I kept asking myself, why was this happening to me when my life was so perfect? Over the next few months, I cried a lot, was awful to my wonderful, caring husband, and thought my perfect life was coming to an end. But I'm a fighter, and I wasn't going to be beaten by Parkinson's. I felt there must be something else I could do or take rather than more and more drugs. I searched and searched. Then one day I came across the book, Parkinson's and the B1 Therapy. I knew the power of vitamins as I had resolved my restless leg syndrome with a form of B3, so I was hopeful. I started the B1 therapy on April 1st. It might be All Fool's Day, but I was not a fool on that day. It was the day that led to me getting my life back. The first real success was turning over in bed. How on earth can B1 make it easier to turn over in bed? Even hubby couldn't believe it. Then I found I wasn't walking like a drunk or dragging my right foot anymore, and this was life-changing. Hubby went from not letting me out walking on my own to just saying, "Be careful," to me as I left. I had always found it embarrassing getting my husband to cut my food up in a restaurant. Now I could do it for myself. I didn't notice my smile had come back, but my friend did, and so did my dentist. Inside me, B1 was making me smile again. We have a 7-acre garden, and now my hubby has his helper back. I feel less anxiety and have more energy. B1 was giving me back my energy. My handwriting isn't perfect, but it has improved. I now find it easier to clean my teeth, too. I have also less muscle ache and a less croaky voice. But most of all, there is more laughter back in my life. Thank you, B1, for giving me back my life. Parkinson's is no longer in control. I am.
This video is for information purposes only. You should consult your physician for advice on treatment, including supplements.